We are live. Good morning, everybody. YouTube and LinkedIn. If you are here already, I am very impressed. Obviously, super eager to be joining us. But why wouldn't you be? I have Jane here, so why would you not be eager to join? If you aren't here, where are you? It's rude of you not to be here. I make that joke every single call, Jane.
You might want to change that up a
bit. No. Why would I want to do that?
You're happy with your choices.
I'm happy with my joke. It's my only joke of the day. It doesn't land like the rest of my jokes, so it's fine. But yeah, look, I kill time for the first 90 seconds whilst people join. And so, yeah, if you are here, thank you for joining. Please get in the comments and say hello. Tell us where you're listening from. And if you have any questions, please do jump in and share those, because you'll have way better questions than me. I think we're going to go on a really strange kind of tour here, or kind of backwards and forwards type of conversation, right? Talking about employee experience, but life moments and potentially how that's connected. I think they probably are with employee experience. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation with Jane and have Jane on here. This is well overdue. We were meant to do a podcast. Was it last year?
I think it might have been the year before.
Yeah, the year before.
I've been putting it off for a little while.
Yeah, and I don't know why she's scared, but I must be quite threatening. But yeah, I was trying to get her on to talk about the corporate world, but now we're having a bit of a corporate world conversation / life moments conversation.
Bit of everything.
Exactly. I mean, this might be different to you. Oh, look, hi, Rich.
Rich. Hi.
There you go. Nice. The Rich is always the best people. I've lost my train of thought, Jane, just so you know. Okay.
I feel like that might happen a few times while we're talking.
Yeah, cool. I just need to get back on. So look, we're going to get going, because this is not going to make a very good listening episode if you're listening on Spotify. So, Jane, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to get your thoughts and input. Employee experience is something I have not that much experience in. But Sid, as a huge well-being factor, or actually when we think about well-being, I think actually potentially needs to be renamed to employee experience, because for me, the experience of work is our well-being ultimately, right? It's how we turn up and show up. But we're going to take a nice kind of view at this and look at life moments and the experience of us being an employee, going through life moments of work and what that experience is like. Hi, Rich. Thanks. So yeah, I'm really excited to do that. And if you have any questions and you have just joined up, please jump in and ask Jane, because Jane's going to have loads of experience. But look, to stop me rambling, Jane, I'm going to throw the mic over to you and say, Jane, lovely to see you. Could you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Of course, I am Jane Roques-Shaw. People always get my surname wrong, so it's quite entertaining whenever they give it a shot. I spent 20 plus years working in global corporates in the employee experience space, in culture change and employee engagement and internal comms. And then about a year and a half ago, decided to take a complete turn in my career and have become a celebrant. So I'm a celebrant for funerals and for weddings, and an experience designer, but not just an experience designer in the work world, an experience designer in life moments. I'm also a hospice volunteer, so I work in a hospice once a week, every Monday, and I'm also a widow, which has really informed a lot of my choices in the last few years.
Thank you for the introduction. Can I go back? And I think I said this to you the first time we spoke, but just the word celebrant gets me every single time, because I just connected to celibacy. So
yeah, definitely not that.
What is a celebrant? When we first met, I was like, now I know. I can ask that question anyway. I'm in a good mood today. Can you tell? I'm in a funny mood.
Yeah, you're very jolly.
I'm very jolly. I've not spoken to many people today, so I think that must be it. You said you've obviously had a full career in employee experience, and then you've shifted into this. Obviously, I know that part of that is because of your experience going through losing your husband. And so, yeah, can you just talk us through that what you've learned and kind of, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So my husband, Seb, he died suddenly of a heart attack in January 2023. And obviously completely unexpected. And it was a pivotal moment for me, as it would be, I imagine, for most people going through that experience, but certainly in relation to what I wanted to do in the future. So the process of grieving has been interesting and challenging over the last 3 years. Be 3 years. It was 3 years in January. And the first 2 years, just horrendous. First year, I would say, very much numb, shock, just got through that year, dragged myself through that year. The second year was when reality really hit. And then year 3 was where I just took a big step back and went, okay, what do I want to do with my life now that everything's changed? And that was the moment where I decided I just want to do something purposeful and meaningful with my life. And that's where the idea for Life Moments for Jane came, and I kind of built from there. So it was really based on my experience of loss, my experience of becoming a widow, both emotionally, also from a practical experience as well, and what I learned from that. And that's also where I help people now with some of those practical elements, the emotional elements, the spiritual elements, in my role, both as a funeral celebrant, but also with workshops I run around death and dying as well, to support people who are perfectly healthy, but planning for end of life, and people who are end of life and their families and friends around them.
Okay. And so can we go back, because you did a lot of work pre-employee experience, right? Pre-2023. You've obviously now gone through this experience. What have you learned from employee experience standpoint?
From an employee experience standpoint, I obviously I'll base it on my experience in the first instance, which will probably just bring it to life, really. One day I was absolutely fine, and then the next day I'd lost my husband. So from a work experience, employee experience point of view, it was really interesting to see how my business handled that experience that I was having, but also how my team, my manager, my peers handled that as well. No one had any training in how to handle that. They didn't have advice. They didn't have support. I didn't have training, advice, support with any of it either. So we muddled through getting through my bereavement as a team, as a business. So, for example, the first person I told at work was a friend, who then told everyone else. I then spoke with HR. HR gave me the bereavement policy and sent me the EAP hotline. So that was my experience. That was kind of the extent to as what they did from an HR experience. The bereavement policy was super vague about how much time I could have off. It was very much, it's kind of up to your manager. My manager was based in the US, so the experience in the US is very different. The EAP hotline didn't actually even have bereavement support. So it was absolutely no use to me whatsoever. And that was it. The rest of my experience was based on the fact that I had an exceptional manager who had been through the experience herself. So she was very empathetic and compassionate and caring and thoughtful in the way that she dealt with me. I had an amazing team who picked up the work for me, who checked in, who rallied. And I had amazing peers on the HR leadership team who took things off my plate, checked in with me, made sure I was okay. So my experience was purely based on the fact that I was surrounded by excellent humans and nothing to do with what had been put in place as a business. So from an employee experience perspective, I was very much coming at it from two viewpoints. One, my experience of working in employee experience and creating culture and that sort of thing. And I was coming at it from a real life lived experience. What had been interesting is the year prior, one of my team had lost both his parents. So I had also come at it from the year before as a manager and thought I dealt with it really well. It's like, have as much time off as you need, come back when you're ready. And then when he was back, it was kind of like, business as usual, not quite that harsh, but it was effectively like that. What I didn't recognize as a manager is what he had been going through and was still going through, which I only understood when it happened to me. I had no idea of the emotional toll and the physical toll that a bereavement takes on you. I had no idea of all the practical things you have to deal with in that first year. So I would deal with that very differently now, understanding those things. And I think businesses need to have a better understanding of what can happen during some of those significant life moments. And when I talk about significant life moments, I mean things like becoming a parent. I mean things like going through fertility treatment, or dealing with a long-term illness, or becoming a carer, or bereavement or grief. They're significant life moments that can't not impact work. And businesses, although they might have an HR policy, they might have an EAP hotline, what they don't necessarily have is the resources and support as a business or culturally to create a positive experience when someone has a significant life moment that impacts them.
Do you think, I'm going to get this question right, because I joined the wellbeing space 2019. COVID taught us a fair chunk, or we began to reflect on wellbeing a fair chunk, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know this question. I answered this question. Do you think since 2023 we've got better at dealing with life moments as organizations, or do you think we're still pretty static?
I'd say better for sure. I think because we've opened up that connection into people's lives by being on video screens, by kind of dealing with the whole COVID around situation. So certainly better, without a doubt. But there's so much more room for improvement. I think people assume it's having things like the HR policy, like the EAP hotline, like, wellbeing webinars. They're all well and good. Yes, we should have all those things. But I think unless you change the culture of a business, the support isn't going to be there. So there's something called, I don't know if you've heard of social baseline theory.
No.
So it's developed by, let me just check the names, James Cohen and David Sparra. And it effectively suggests that humans are wired to expect support from others as a simple baseline. And if you don't have that culture within your business, when something like a significant life moment happens, that support isn't there. And that can't be from an HR policy, from a EAP hotline, or from, doing a wellbeing seminar. That has to be inherent in the culture of the business. And that, thinking about that, you're thinking about things like being able to provide comfort, connection, opportunity to contribute. It's creating psychological safety. It's providing well-being. All of those things need to be there for when that significant life moment does happen. It's not suddenly jarring and no one knows what to do and everyone's running around in a panic and not being able to have a conversation or anything. That sort of stuff needs to be there. So you've already got those relationships that have been built in the business. You've got the connections with your team, your manager, and you can, if you're a parent coming back from work, whether you're a man or a woman, you've been off on leave, being able to come back into the workplace and have those conversations without it being difficult.
I guess the challenge I see here is that people really struggle to build those things. And that's not just a policy we can put in for bereavement. It's actually, this is a sales pitch from someone like myself, right? Actually being able to help managers and teams understand how to create psychological safety, how to be a good leader, how to be empathetic, how to build relationships of care.
Yep.
This is the issues we see in the workplace in general.
Yeah. And I think what's one of the things that I've done with businesses who want to look at these significant life moments is really think about the personal stories you've got in your business. So for example, in the last company I worked for, when the place where I worked, when this happened to me, we ended up doing a big piece of work around employee journey mapping some of those experiences. So the experiences we chose were becoming a parent, dealing with long-term illness, becoming a carer, bereavement, and actually divorce ended up being one of them, because that was kind of thrown in by employees. And we did employee journey mapping on what the experience was like for them in the company that they were in, but also the experiences they'd had before. So being able to bring to life the real life stories of people in your own business and what they've experienced when they've gone through some of these things, and stories from businesses they've worked at, really helped us then go, right, okay, where's the gap between what they're experiencing now and what we'd like them to be experiencing in the future? And then, because I often work in global businesses, that can be really inconsistent. So really thinking about this consistency of those experiences and what you're offering people across the business, especially if you're kind of disparate or you've got different types of employees, really thinking about the personas of the people you've got in the business and where they're located. What we did was mapped those journeys out, created some beautiful stories to bring to life some of those experiences that people had had, so that when the leaders were trying to decide whether to invest in this space, they had some real life examples, which really, really helped. And then what we did is, based on that feedback, we created resources to support, as you mentioned, managers, which is a really big one. So my manager at Dentsu, the only reason that she was really excellent with me is because she'd been through it herself. Yeah. So many other people would have crumbled in that situation and not known how to deal with it. What people need is some guidelines and some support. So webinars are great and training's great. But in that moment when it happens, and I'll use my example with grief and a bereavement, you're not going to remember what you learned in a training program like a year ago. You need something that's, that moment in time. Where do I go? Where do I find this information? What are the questions I might want to ask? What are the things that I might need to send them? How can I help? How can I help the team around them? It's that sort of thing. So it's creating real life kind of human tangible resources and tools for people to use in a moment in time.
Yeah. Just listening to what you said about how you the kind of questions maybe it's because I'm blinkered a little bit here. Does sound like if you can get your managers to be a little bit more like a coach and ask good questions to understand and help support, that might allow that person to give you, because they, like, I can imagine if you take yourself back to that experience and that moment afterwards, when you first had that interaction with your manager and they would ask, how can I help you? What do you need? What's going to best support you? You would know.
Well, no, not necessarily. If we're specifically talking about grief, you don't know what you want or what you need. So that's a really difficult question to answer. But other people might be really clear. I think one of the main things is that everyone's different. So being able to have those questions and prompts, I think, is super, super helpful. But being able to give them the opportunity to talk, or having suggestions. So would this help? Or, could this be a good solution for you? So they're not, all the onus isn't on them to make the decision. You're giving them options that they can potentially choose from. So, for example, one of the things that I experienced was, the bereavement policy is this is how many days we have in the bereavement policy, but your manager can decide how much time you have off. I cannot tell you how anxiety inducing that was, because I didn't know how much time I could have off. I didn't know if that was paid. I was worried I was going to lose my job. So all of these stresses and anxieties came from the lack of clarity around that. So, and again, that was because it was pushed on me, instead of saying, okay, would this help? And, maybe after the funeral we talk about this, or, whatever it might be. But there are things that we can do as human beings. This is all about being more human. It's all about being more human. If you think about your own personal circle of friends, and I was thinking about this earlier today, my own close circle of friends, I've had one mother returning to work, a father who's been off for 3 years returning to work, 2 friends with breast cancer having to go through, treatment, friend going through fertility treatment, another friend caring for a person, a parent with dementia, another one suffering a bereavement. This is just in my small circle of friends. So if you think about a business, how many people this impacts, it's significant. It's huge. So as a leader, as an HR person, as a manager, you will, if not having experienced it yourself, someone on your team will be experiencing one of these things.
So figuring out how to, having clarity on how to support those in with the right frameworks or policies is going to be really important, right?
Yeah, and the right resources. Just having those resources that are available to them.
Yeah. Maybe step backwards, because you talked about when it happened. Your first year was a bit of a blur. Second year, back into work, and the third year is kind of looking at what you're doing now, right? But can you just, I don't know what this looks like, but look at kind of grief as an employee to understand the process of that in the first year, maybe. If you said it's a bit of a blur, but can you help?
Yeah, specifically about grief. Yeah. Again, everyone's experience is different. And it's very significantly different if you suffer a sudden loss versus if you have experienced anticipatory grief. So if somebody's sick and you have to go through that experience with them and then you lose them. So it can really shift and change the sort of roller coaster of grief, just a caveat. So this is based on my personal experience. I would say from the day that Seb died through to the funeral, it was a flurry of having to tell people that he died, having to deal with the funeral director, the coroner, the police, registering his death, and then an insane amount of paperwork. So calling people, I ended up having to deal with 60 different companies to talk to them about the fact that he died. So you're doing that on the phone, you're doing that on email, you're doing that online, you're doing that in person. You're constantly having to repeat, this person is dead, this person is dead, this person is dead. And a lot of people don't know how to deal with that when you're having those conversations. So it was dealing with your own grief. It was dealing with everyone else's grief, because you've got people around you who you've lost that person as well, or people around you that are reacting to you telling them, and then you're having to deal with their reaction. Then you're organising a funeral and you're organising a wake. And that first 4-week period was just like a flurry of insane activity that I don't remember very well. It was literally just like a blur. And then I was chatting to someone about this the other day. The funeral happened, and then there was just this quiet. And in that first year, I was really lucky. I've got amazing friends and family. People were around all the time. So they were at my house, they were calling me, they had WhatsApp groups, making sure people were checking in on me, all of that stuff. So I was being really, really well looked after. But the reason it was a blur, because my brain had just completely gone into shock. Like I wasn't really eating, I wasn't really drinking. I was just about functioning in that first year. I went back to work after 5 weeks, so a week after the funeral, simply because I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't be sitting in the house on my own. So I went back to work. I was very lucky to have a super supportive team. I can't promise I did brilliant work in that first year, but I got through the year. But it was a roller coaster. Like one day I thought I was okay, and then the next I'd be a hot mess. Like I did stupid things, like I put a spoon in the blender, and the blender completely exploded. A spoon. Left a spoon in the blender. Just completely destroyed the blender, like burst out. I left my car keys in my car for like 3 hours. So your brain's just not working. I'd get exhausted by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and just couldn't function from that point onwards. And work was really good about accommodating that. My thought process just wasn't working. I couldn't retain information. So that was certainly the first year, going on into the second year as well, I would say. So a real roller coaster. You're up, you're down, you're all over the place. And that's where work needs to understand what's happening. Like, I think it's really, really helpful for managers and teams to have a good understanding of this is what this person might be going through in this first year. So a lot of emotions, a lot of physical signs as well. Like, I kept thinking I was having a heart attack. And I was just exhausted all the time. And then, my brain just shutting down. And then the practical stuff. So all of the sadmin, they call it, all of that stuff just kind of coming at you every 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's really interesting, right? Because I'm hearing that and going, I didn't even think about this stuff.
But why
you
would
say it, you go, oh yeah, actually, makes so much sense. So anyway, I guess the reason why I asked that question initially was to create a picture and to answer these two questions, all right? As a follow-on. So you now have a personal experience of this, and so what advice would you give from a personal standpoint to somebody maybe going through this, but then also from an employee experience piece? Now you've gone through it. What advice would you give an organization to manage that situation a bit better?
Yeah. From a personal experience, someone else going through the same is going to be rough. And it's going to be rough. You've just got to let those emotions come out. You've got to find your people. You've got to have an amazing support network. Either that's friends and family, or it's, therapy, or, counseling, or whatever it might be. Have people around you that can support you through that.
I can imagine you probably wanted to hide under like a rock, but that would be the worst.
Yeah. And there were moments where I was just like, I don't want to see anyone. Everyone just go away. But my friends thankfully know me well enough that they were not having any of that. So there would always be someone around. But and I think when I'm 3 years in now, and the roller coaster still goes, I have days where I'm absolutely, just living, and then days where I'm just, on the floor. And I definitely don't show that as much anymore to the people around me, because I've like, there's a sense of guilt in burdening anyone. 3 years in, I feel like I'm a burden. But certainly in year 1 and 2, burden away. Like, just take the help, take the support from the people. So even things like the practical element of stuff, there's amazing people out there that can support with that. There's an incredible woman that I met, Emma Gray. She runs a company called Rainbow Hunting. She helped me get through all of this admin. And that sounds like it's not an important thing, but oh my goodness, that just gave me space to be able to grieve properly. So find those people. And again, businesses should be able to signpost people in the right direction of where this support can be found. I had to search for everything myself. I didn't know anyone who'd been through the same experience. My business were lovely, but not experienced in dealing with this. I had to go out and find what I needed, which is now where I help other people, which is a really amazing thing to be able to do. And then from a business perspective, I think it's understanding that this isn't just going to be that person's had a bereavement and then they'll be okay in like a few months' time. This is an ongoing thing. They are not going to be probably in a great place for certainly the next year, probably into year 2. And then know things like anniversaries. Know when the anniversary of the death was. Know when the birthday of that person was. It's those kind of things that can be real triggers for people. So if you've got someone in your business or in your team, know when those moments are, because they're some of the things that can real gut punch you. And I think just keep checking in. Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask if they're okay. They're thinking about it all the time. So don't ever think, oh, I don't want to upset them. It's like they're upset all the time. They're just holding it in. And actually, it's a really lovely thing for someone to ask you or tell you something about your husband or your partner or your parent or whatever it might be, or ask a question or ask, how are you feeling today? It's very specifically today. Don't say, how are you feeling? Because that's too difficult to answer. So just, regularly checking in, and don't kind of just like after a few months ignore it.
And that's a really great advice, Ryan. From both angles, the personal advice, like make sure you're around your people, and don't feel scared to burden. Because I listened to that on the flip side. If I had a friend going through this, like I'd want to be there for that person. So it's not a burden. It's like actually it's me helping. I feel like I know that person's going through something, and so I'd want to be there.
Yeah, sometimes so I did this, so I was guilty of this, and I know other people, you tend to push people away because you feel like a burden. But just keep going as the friend or a family member. Just keep being there, checking in, because they're going to need you eventually.
Yeah. But as you said, Ryan, I can understand it from that side as well. Is that if all you're thinking about, all you're doing and talking about and paperwork about is that it's all consuming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, work. I couldn't. No offense. Couldn't have cared less about work in that first year. I was literally surviving. Yeah, like your life just completely changes. That your perspective of life changes. Like everything seems quite meaningless. And when you think about work and corporate life and that sort of thing, suddenly that felt like so unimportant. And you have to get through that to get out the other end. But yeah, you're going through so much, and people don't really recognize how much that is.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because you went back to work after 5 weeks, and when you said that, I would probably do the same thing, because if you're consumed by it, you want to take your mind away from it.
Yeah.
And so I understand that completely.
Yeah, I think it's much harder. So I had a job where I was people facing, but I could take a step back, and I had a team, and they could step in and go to meetings. And I think it's really hard if you're working in a customer facing role, if you're working in a shop. I was talking to a lovely lady at the hospice I work at the other day, and she works in a shop, and she was about to go back into work, and she was so afraid of people asking her while she was at work, because she was in a public space. That's really hard. So being really careful about when you decide to return, and just having some boundaries in place about understanding, how you, because physically as well, grief is exhausting. It completely wipes you out. So knowing at what time of the day you're going to crash, or what you need to keep you going, that's really important as well.
Yeah, boundaries is it also sounds like communication potentially as well around your own boundaries. So if you're going into a client-facing role, having communication and clear communication with the people with you, that this is that I don't really want to speak about this on the client floor, or just because then if I know that, I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not if like we're maybe in retail or wherever it is, I'm not going to ask you, hey Jane, how are you?
Yeah.
On client floor. But actually, I might ask the question when we're the ones to check in, make sure you're okay outside of that environment.
Yeah, and actually, what I've experienced as well is some people really uncomfortable. I mean, most people are uncomfortable talking about death. I have this weird knack now of meeting people, and with 5 minutes talking about death because of what I do for a job. So I'm just straight in with the death chat. Generally, people feel really, really uncomfortable and are really weird about talking about death. So I was very conscious of that when I went back into the office. I deliberately went into the office on my first day back. And even just people giving me a hug or sending me an email just saying, I don't know what to say, but I'm thinking about you. That was enough. You don't have to, do much to let that person know that they're cared about. So just don't say things like, he's gone to a better place, or the strange things that came out of people's mouths that were just horrendous. But again, with businesses, what they can do well is if they have the resources to say, look, these are some things you might want to say. Maybe these are some things you might want to avoid. So even that would help.
Yeah.
And the same with all of those other life moments as well, about becoming a parent, fertility, dealing with long-term illness, all of those things. There are some really basic things you can guide people around and help people with.
Yeah, because I can imagine the intention's fine. It's just some things just don't land.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just some things don't.
They're not doing it to be mean. They're like,
no.
that's not the right thing to say to that person.
Yeah, they just don't know what to say, and it kind of just comes out. And just
that's some good advice as well, right? Just getting, okay. So look, let's take us back into the organizational piece, right? So look, we've gone through quite a lot, and I feel like I'm way more aware. So then, how do we? And it's obviously we looked at managers, we looked about team, we looked about communication, but actually, what ownership does the organization need to take in? What does the best way of working from an organizational standpoint look like from Life Moments?
Yeah, I think if they want to retain and keep employees engaged, they need to think about this, because everyone will go through one of these experiences. And it could be, I mean, I have stats coming out my ears around the impact that businesses who've dealt with these things badly has, which I'm more than happy to share with anyone listening. I mean, there's so many good reasons to focus on this, to retain talent, to bring talent into the business, to make sure that people are engaged, to make sure that people have comfort in and feel safe in the place that they're working in. There's a million reasons to focus on it for all of those different life moments, and they're all different. And there's just some really simple ways to do it. This is what's so frustrating, that so many companies get it wrong, and they just go, oh, we've done the tick box, we've done the HR policy, we've done the EAP hotline, and then we don't really need to think about anything else. If you sat a bunch of leaders down and went, right, who in this room has experienced this, or this, that would probably prick up their ears, and they'll go, oh my gosh, yeah, okay, I kind of get it now. And what impact did that have on you? Oh, yeah, okay. So I think that's where you just bring it back to the real life experiences that people have had, to help them understand this is just being human. It's a human experience. It's going to happen. So let's as a business be as compassionate as we can, and supportive as we can, and provide as many resources as we can. It doesn't take much.
Yeah. I can imagine having those HR leaders or the leaders in a room asking that question and going, so what was your experience of going through that?
Yeah, exactly. Because they'll all have an experience. I have no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. What was good? What was bad? Like, what did people do well? What did people do badly? Like, for me, it turns. I think so many companies and just teams in general don't talk about teamwork. Don't talk about stuff like this.
No, they don't, because it keeps getting filed under, well-being. I do that in inverted commas because, sometimes people just go, oh, it's a well-being thing. It's not, it's a business thing.
Yeah.
It's impacting your business and the people in your business. So stop sort of filing it over here. I'm going to read you this list of things, the hidden, but not really that hidden, impact of not focusing on some of these life moments. You've obviously got absence, quiet quitting, got loss of talent, people just leaving the business because you've dealt with it really, really badly, reduced focus, disengagement, erosion of trust, and that is a huge one, losing trust in your business and the leaders in your business and the manager and all of those people, reputational impact. So they will go on and they will tell people about their experience of working in your business. Stress and burnout, really big ones. Emotional overload. With all of those, life moments, there's a lot of emotional burden. Manager uncertainty. So you're putting managers in a really difficult position by expecting them to deal with these things with no help or support. Decrease in productivity. That's a big one. I mean, I was very unproductive in that first year. So how do you help support that as a business and remain productive? But maybe you need the support of the team around. Grievances or escalations. So for HR, that's a big one. That could come out of not dealing with these situations well. Inconsistency across teams. So one person over here, they had this dealt with in a different way to this person over here, just because their manager was better. And then damage to psychological safety. So they're just a few things, that can impact a business based on people's experiences.
I'm going to maybe challenge is not the right word, but I want to think about it from the opposite side of this now, right? You are a manager. You are set expectations. You are set KPIs. Right? Then, so if you look at your manager who had to, obviously you went through your experience and then had to manage you, the expectations upon her for the output and success. How? Because we can talk about it from an empathetic standpoint, right? But then I go, oh, you still need to be successful and
Get
need
the
to
job
achieve
done.
stuff. Yeah, you still need to get the job done. How do you manage performance whilst trying to be empathetic and human? That's a really hard balance, because there needs to be expectations. There needs to be a little bit of, come on, Jane, you promised me this.
Yeah, and I think it so depends on the business, the person, the role. There are ways to make things work and have those conversations and bring in other people and set some expectations around. I think part of it is just setting expectations. So if my boss at the time had said to me, look, these are real priority, do you think you can manage them? And we'd had that conversation. And these are the things where it's just having the conversation and being able to look at the reality of the situation rather than just carrying on as normal, because things aren't normal. Or taking everything away. Actually, one of the things that happened to me is I had a project taken away from me because they assumed I wouldn't want to deal with it. And then I was really upset because I was like, oh my God, they think I'm incapable. So it's just like the other way around as well. So I think it's just having a conversation about the reality of the situation, because you're right, people still need to get the job done, but there are ways of kind of trying to make it worth both sides. But sometimes people ignore the trying to make it work bit.
Yeah. Because you have to, from a business standpoint, you have to take the emotions away from it sometimes as well, and go, well,
you can do both. You can be human and run a business.
Exactly.
You can do both. Like, you're not going to just completely ignore being. You shouldn't completely ignore being empathetic, but you shouldn't also completely ignore that someone's not doing a good job. You just need to know to give them some grace, or time. Or just work flexibly. So for me, I was doing more in a condensed period of time and doing less kind of at this end of the day. Or, for example, if you are looking after an ill parent, or if you are going through fertility treatment, it's just being able to say, look, this is happening at this point. I just need the flexibility to do that. And then opening up the conversation around, okay, can this be done in an evening if that's going to work better for that person? To get the job done, is that going to work? But again, it's that ongoing conversation, the openness and honesty around it.
Yeah, because that's what my brain goes to. Because I look at it from and now as I flip it to the performance side of things, I need these to be done. KPIs need to be reached. I don't have headcount, so I don't have people who can take the work off of you. How do we get this done? How do we achieve this? Because if we don't, we're going to lose money. And then from a business standpoint, then I'm paying somebody who isn't performing and it's costing us.
And I guess all you can do is make sure that you are also providing some of that foundational stuff for them. So if it's an EAPA hotline that actually does help them, so they're kind of being able to manage dealing with all of this. I mean, but lots of EAPs are amazing. It's just that ours happen to not have bereavement support in it. Or they're getting signposted to therapy or whatever it might be. If you're doing as much as you can as a business, that's as much as you can do, right? But if you're doing nothing, then shame on you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, right? And there are some, like I work with Mind Up, who is a fantastic therapy coaching place, right? And so like having places like that, and then you can go, well, my investment in those sessions, I'm helping that person. We're also creating some expectation, but giving that person the outlet. So there you can still look at performance as well as being a human. Also, then hopefully helping educate managers. Business has got a lot of expectations on them as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we go next, Jane? what have we not touched on? I feel like we've covered quite a bit so far.
Yeah, I think that for me, the biggest bit is understanding where you are now as a business, because you can make lots of assumptions about, oh no, we've got everything in place. It's like, have you?
Yeah. So what would you
actually
do
is
then?
that experience?
Where do we start there then?
The bit that I recommend and has worked really well for businesses that I've worked with is doing that employee journey mapping. So getting people in a room or online and looking at what their experience is. So if we take returning from maternity, thinking about who are they dealing with in that experience? Like, what systems are they using? What policies and processes are there? And then what worked well, what didn't work well? And then thinking about empathy mapping of that is like, where did it go really well and they were really happy in that experience, and where was an awful experience for them? And then letting them share, look, this would have really helped if we'd have had this in place as a business. So getting people together who've been through the experience, because you're going to get so many different viewpoints. The really interesting thing about doing it at one of the companies I worked with, because it was global, the experiences were really, really inconsistent, which came up loud and clear, depended on the manager, but globally different as well. So, for example, in relation to bereavement, some countries very comfortable talking about death, wonderful rituals in place that help people through that experience, people comfortable talking about it in work. And then you come to the English and it's all very like buttoned up and no one really wants to talk about it, and people are all
emotions. What emotions?
All fine. So that was interesting as well, looking at it from a cultural perspective, all of those things too. So I think the first thing is looking at your policies and processes and procedures and all of that stuff. Are they fit for purpose? Looking at things like benefits, are they personalized for some of those life moments? And then looking at the experience from their own employees' viewpoint as well. And then being able to pull together resources. So one of the things that was lovely about the work that we did at Dentsu is it was very much an employee, we did it with the employees. So it's like, right, what are the resources that really helped you? What books did you read? What podcasts did you listen to? So it wasn't just, here's an organization or a charity that you can go to. It's like, this actually properly helped me when I was going through this experience. It just felt much more human and collaborative and more of a community. So that's a really nice way to do it as well.
Yeah, I love that. I like the way that you got the input from. First, you need to figure out whether your organization's fit for purpose, right?
Yeah.
Does my policy for these life moments, are they fit for purpose? Yes or no? You can challenge that, right? And then I like the way you get input from employees who've been through that experience to get the different voices, the different challenges, the different kind of things that they thought were good and bad. And then you can begin to build out. What my brain went to there is like having like a space, like a YouTube channel, and this is just my way I'm explaining it, but like a Netflix for the stories that people have gone through. And actually share.
That's what we did at Dentsu. We created a space on the internet that had people's stories, and then the things that they'd recommended that helped them through that. And then we signposted the things that were internal that the business were providing, and the support that they could find externally as well. So it was something that was super easy. When that moment came where someone went, I don't know, I've lost a baby. That is a horrible thing to have to deal with as a person, but also the people around them. Like, no one knows what to say. So being able to go somewhere to go, oh my God, my employees just said this, I don't know what to do with this. They can go on the intranet or whatever they use as a business and go, here are some tools and some resources and support that I can at least start having a conversation with that person and make that easier for them. So yeah, somewhere that's just in the moment, this is the information that I need and I know where it is and I can pull from that.
Yeah. I know that obviously you've taken a bit of a detour in your career.
Yeah.
Do you still help organizations put that stuff together from an employee experience standpoint?
I do. Yeah. I think that, God, I spent 20 plus years working in that space. I couldn't quite pull myself away from it. And there's such a beautiful connection between what I do now and what I used to do, because they're just, it's life. It's all life. Life happens. It's just, I'm now experiencing it from a different angle in the hospice, as a funeral celebrant, as a wedding celebrant, working with people around death and dying and funeral planning and that kind of thing. But it just brings the reality to life and how businesses are doing with employee experience. So yes, I still work with businesses. I help them look at, I guess it's sort of threefold. It's looking at all the data that they might have available. So doing some of that work around the stuff that you're doing fit for purpose, doing all that research. It's then being able to look at, okay, based on all of that, what could your strategy be to improve this? And then it's the execution of that strategy. So essentially I kind of split it into three. So as a business, you can choose to do all three or just pick one. You might have done all the research already and have all the information you need. But yeah, so I love being able to marry the sort of, that was marry people as well, but marry those two parts of my career.
What's the biggest challenge you see?
I think an assumption that it's going to cost businesses money, loads of money, and actually some of the stuff that they can do is really simple. So I think that's a challenge. So getting in to have that conversation in the first instance is really difficult. I think it's the bit about well-being. It's like, oh, we haven't got enough money to spend on well-being. It's almost that kind of attitude. I think when it comes to death and dying, it's people's discomfort talking about death and dying. So that's obviously a thing which I'm trying to change the narrative around. We're all going to die. Let's stop being weird about it. Is my view. So yeah, they're probably the two. The concern that it's going to cost the business loads of money. Actually, it's going to cost you more money if you don't focus on it. And when it comes to some of the stuff I do in the death space, yeah, it's that discomfort with death and dying.
Yeah, fair. Jane, thank you. Thank you for all of your insights. I've learned a lot. I hope everybody else has learned a lot. I think there's some really good lessons out of this. And I think from my takeaways, when we look at life moments and employee experience, it is just about communication.
It is a lot about communication, yeah.
And actually just being able to understand what we said at the end there, right? Listening to people, communicating with them, and then trying to put things in place to help them through communication be okay and go through those moments. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed being on.
I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay where you are. Everybody else, Thank you for joining. And I will see you all, not next week, the week after. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.